Hello, and welcome to the Can You Survive the Fall of the Qing Dynasty video for classroom use. So in this video, we will walk through the game, and there on the bottom left, you can see a map of what the Qing Dynasty would have looked like. And on the right, you can see my friend Terry, who kindly helped with the Chinese names for this game. So to play this game, you're going to need character cards. So each student will play a particular person or people who are members of a family of 4 trying to survive 19th century Qing China. Some of you might play 2 people. Ideally, there will be groups of 4. But if that doesn't work, if you need some groups of 2 or 3, that's fine. But some people will play multiple characters. So you do want to make sure that you know who you are playing. And the instructor should feel free to pause this video at any time in order to hand out materials or to answer student questions. Once you have your card, it's important to look at it. And one thing to, first of all, to note is your character will have a name, and it includes the original Chinese characters, how they're pronounced in English, and the English translation. And that's where Terry was of great assistance. But below that, you can see their economic contribution. And that's the number of dice that you roll during a hunger check. And you can see on this card, for example, Yu Ying, there is an S next to the 5. The S stands for start. So that's where you begin. So you begin with the economic contribution of 5, meaning she would roll 5 dice during a hunger check. And you'll notice too that there's numbers that it can change. You can go up or down. If that happens, you would just mark the card. And then when you make a hunger check, a 4, 5, or 6 is a success normally. A 1, 2, or 3 is a failure. So when you roll your dice, 4, 5s, and 6s are successes. 1, 2s, and 3s are failures. Sometimes there's also what are called fate checks. During a fate check, you roll a number of dice equal to that number marked with an S. Right? So Yu Ying would roll 1 dice. Those numbers can change, like I said, which is why their number is not marked with S. If a number changes, mark the new number. Food needed is how much food you need. You should not need to worry about that unless someone dies. If someone dies, then the food that the family needs would go down by 3, and I'll explain later how to mark that. Health is how much health you have. If you lose a health, mark out a box. If you mark them all out, you die. If that happens, let your instructor know. So in each turn you'll draw a card from an event deck, and some of these cards mean you'll have a baby. If you have a baby, let the instructor know. Sometimes cards will say something happened to someone. So for example, someone has become addicted to gambling. Reduce their economic contribution by 1, and you use the random chart to determine whom. And there are at least, it's good if you have at least 14 of these dice for each group, because you'll be rolling a lot of dice in this game. And it's important that everyone should roll their dice at the same time. And it's best to roll them all at once. If each person rolls their dice one at a time, you'll fall behind and you won't be able to get through the entire game. So it's important to be efficient with your dice rolling. Roll them all at once. And then you would place them on the board. That will, if you have one, this will help things go quickly. So if there's a failure, 1, 2, or 3, it goes in the red. Success, 4, 5, or 6, it goes in the green. That makes things go really quickly. So your instructor will also hand out a board that helps you keep track of your family resources. So on the right, if you look at the board, on the bottom right, there is a table. So remember we said that there was that card where someone could become addicted to gambling. You would then roll on this table to see who it was, right? So you roll dice. If it's 1, dad got addicted to gambling. If it's 2, it was mom. 3, it was the daughter. 4, it was the son. And it's also possible sometimes for this chart to come up with one of the babies. It goes up to 8, but if you only have a 6-sided dice, you would just stop it at 6. Babies, of course, can't become addicted to gambling, but there's other uses for the random chart. But if it ever says this happens to a random family member, you roll dice to see who it is. So place a food counter on the 10 in the total food needed chart. I've already done the math, and you need 10 food to begin with. If someone dies, that would change, right? So the 10 could go down to 7. And there's a counter worth 5 food to help us in case you have a lot of food that you're growing. And you start off with 1 food in the stored food box and 1 reputation counter in the reputation box. So each turn, you will be ask a question, and if you get it right, add 1 reputation. So reputation symbolizes how much people like and respect you, and you can spend it to get people to give you food if you run out of food. So that's why that's useful. Then you would draw a card, and it's only 1 per family per turn, so you don't each draw one person would draw that card. Your instructor will then give you an event, which you will need to resolve, and then you will finally make a hunger check. And like I said, I'll try and pause briefly to give the instructor time to pause the video at different moments. So we'll start off with our question. He led a failed British diplomatic mission to the Qing Empire, trying to convince it to open to trade and establish political relations. Was it A, Matthew Perry, B, Ernest Satow, C, Johnston, or C, McCartney? And the answer in 3, 2, 1 was McCartney. So if you got that right, give yourself a reputation counter and place it in the reputation box. So you would now draw a card. And now it is time to make a choice. We have an event. A relative approaches and says that foreigners want to buy tea and want to borrow money to set up a tea business. Do you loan them money or not? If you don't loan anything, nothing happens. If yes, subtract 1 success from your hunger check this turn. Now, I do want to point there is an investment in tea card. If you drew that as your first card, you can shuffle that back in the deck if you decide to invest in the tea, because you don't get your investment unless you actually draw that card. So we'll now make our first hunger check. And this is one where the instructor may want to work closely with the students to make sure they see how it works. People catch on to this very quickly, but it does take a little bit to catch on. So each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. All right, so each one of you has a character or characters. You roll those dice. Add up the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Right, so if you have, and this is where it's nice to have that red and green success and failure chart or board. You would put the dice on there, and let's say you end up with 10 successes. So you remove 1 food counter for each needed, add 1 more if you invested in tea. So you usually start off needing 10 food, and if you got 10 successes, you got it. Everyone was able to eat. That's great. Now, let's say, though, that you had 11 successes. So you put 11 food counters in your box. So that means that after you remove 10, you would actually have 1 left. So you'd move that from the harvest box to the stored food box. So you would now have 2 stored food, right? Because you had 1 at the beginning, 1 here. And food, for our purposes, it essentially lasts forever. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. And you can spend multiple counters if necessary. So let's say that you only had 9 successes, but you need 10 food. You could remove a reputation or a stored food, and that would fix things. And nothing bad would happen. If you had 8 successes, you could remove your stored food and your reputation to get 10 successes total. You'd be fine then. You wouldn't have any food left, but at least you wouldn't starve this turn. But let's say you only got 6 successes, right? So that means you're down 4 food. You can remove a food, your stored food, and the reputation, but that only leads to a total of 8. You need 2 more, right? You're down 2. So what happens then is if you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. Determine who loses the health, roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. So if you had someone if you were still down 2 food, you would have to roll twice, and then you would mark a health box off for whoever's name came up randomly. And then if anyone dies, of course, you would let the instructor know. So I would encourage the instructor to pause here and make sure that everyone is okay with how to do this, because we'll be doing a lot of these. All right, so our next question, Who was the Qing emperor who rejected the McCartney mission? Was it A. Kangxi, B. Qianlong, C. Komei, or D. Meiji? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 is Qianlong. So now you would draw a card and resolve that. Foreign merchants from the West are selling opium. Do you try and make money by helping grow or smuggle opium, or do you have nothing to do with it? So you need to make a decision, and the instructor may want to pause the video here. If you have nothing to do with it, you do not need to do anything else. If you decide to work with them, you lose 1 reputation, but the husband and wife each get to roll 1 extra dice this turn only when making their hunger check. So again, we have a hunger check. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. Add up the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have sufficient food reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. To determine who loses the health, roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let me know. Who was the Chinese feminist and nationalist who was part of a plot to assassinate a Qing official? Was it Hong Xiuquan, Yi Chengya, Chu Jin, or Deng Xiaoping? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was Chu Jin. Okay, so you would draw a card. We're now at the Opium War. The Qing emperor is angry about the sale of opium and has taken steps to stop the trade that has led to war with the Westerners. Does the oldest male join the militia to fight against the Westerners, or do you do nothing? If someone has joined the militia, the family gains 2 reputation, but the family must make a fate check. So in this case, everyone rolls dice and equal to their fate score. So if you have a fate score of 1, you would roll 1 dice. 2, you'd roll 2 dice. Remember that babies have fate, and it's good to assign someone to make sure to roll for the babies, right? Babies do not make an economic contribution, but they do make a fate contribution. So go ahead and roll your fate dice. And everyone does this. If together the family earns 2 or fewer successes, the family member dies. If they earn 3 successes, he was wounded and comes back with 1 less health. And if they earn 4 more successes, he returns unhurt. If no one joined the militia, the family loses 1 reputation. If they don't have a reputation, nothing happens. Okay, now it's time to make a hunger check. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. You add up the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. Determine who loses the health, roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let me know. The American Commodore who forced Japan to open to the outside world was A. Matthew Perry, B. Ernest Satow, C. Johnston, or D. Lovecraft. And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was Matthew Perry. So now draw and resolve a card. It's now time for the opening of treaty ports. The British victory in the Opium War means that China has to open ports. Does your family take advantage of this by sending the oldest son to study, if one exists, or do you do nothing? If you do nothing, nothing happens. If you send the oldest son to study, make a fate check. If you roll no or 1 success, he falls ill and dies while studying. If you roll 2 successes, he returns with 1 less health, having learned nothing. If you roll 3 successes, he returns having learned nothing. If you roll 4 more successes, he returns with new knowledge, raising his economic contribution score by 1 permanently, meaning that he will roll 1 additional dice during hunger checks as long as he lives. If he dies, that goes away. It's now time for the hunger check. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. You add up the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. To determine who loses the health, roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let your instructor know. Who was the Japanese person who argued that Japanese people could modernize while remaining Japanese? Was it A. Hong Xiuquan, B. Sun Yat-sen, C. Chu Jin, or D. Fukuzawa Yukichi? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 is Fukuzawa Yukichi. So go ahead and draw a card and resolve it. And your event is an unusual discovery. While on the way back from a village festival, the family discovers a baby abandoned on the road. Do you keep walking, or do you take the baby into your household? If you keep walking, a gossipy neighbor saw you and you lost 1 reputation. If you keep the baby, you will have to take care of the child. You gain 2 reputation, and please raise your hand so the instructor knows to give you a baby card. Make sure to raise your food needed if you take the baby. It is now time for a hunger check. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. Add up the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have enough sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. To determine who loses the health roll on the random table on your board, do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let me know. Who was the emperor restored to power in Japan? Was it A. Kangji, B. Ming Taizu, C. Koomei, or D. Meiji? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was Meiji. Draw a card. I have bad news. A prolonged drought has led to famine. During the hunger check, only 6s count as successes. 4s and 5s are now failures. It's just for this turn. So normally 4s, 5s, and 6s count as successes, but this turn, only 6s count. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number for the hunger check. You would add up the total number of successes of all family members. This time, though, it's not a 4, 5, or 6, only 6s. And add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. Determine who loses the health, roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, inform your instructor. Who developed the Three People's Principles and became the first president of the Republic of China? Was it A. Hong Xiuquan, B. Sun Yat-sen, C. Chu Jin, or D. An Chun-gun? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was Sun Yat-sen, B. Draw a card. Your event is meeting with foreigners. A group of hairy foreigners with red hair and long noses approach your village and encourage you to believe in someone named Yesu, who was executed as a criminal, but they claim came back to life. Some Chinese people already believe, and they tell you that if you join, not only can you go to heaven when you die, the foreigners will help you get food. You also learn that if you join the new religion, you can no longer worship your ancestors or the traditional gods. Do you join the new religion or do you reject it? If you do not join with the foreigners, nothing happens. If you do join the new religion, make a fate check. If you roll 2 or fewer successes, local villagers are angry at you and you lose 2 reputation. If you roll 3 or 4 successes, you roll 1 extra dice for this hunger check only. If you roll 5 or 6 successes, you roll 2 extra dice for this hunger check only. And this is not per person, this is per group. If you roll 7 successes, you roll 3 extra dice for this turn's hunger check. And if you roll 8 or more successes, you roll 4 extra dice for this turn's hunger check. It is now time for the hunger check. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. Add up the total number of successes of all family members, and add that many food counters to the harvest box. And the drought is over, so a 4, 5, or 6 now count. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. Determine who loses the health, roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let your instructor know. What was the name of the rebellion led by a Chinese man who was convinced that he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ? Was it A, the Boxer Rebellion, B, the Taiping Rebellion, C, the Nan Rebellion, or D, the Xiongnu Rebellion? And the correct answer is B, the Taiping Rebellion. So you would now draw a card and resolve an event. Now it's time for us to fight the Taiping Rebellion. A group of armed men claiming to represent the Heavenly Kingdom approach and ask you to join their rising against the Qing Empire, which they claim is ruled by demons. They promise that if you send your oldest male with them, they will give you food. Do you send the oldest male with them or not? This would usually be the father/husband, but if he's dead, it would be the son. If you sent the oldest male with them, make a fate check. If you rolled 2 or fewer successes, he dies. Remember, everyone rolls the fate check. If you rolled 3 or 4 successes, he returns with 2 less health. If you rolled 5 or 6 successes, he returns with 1 less health. If you rolled 7 or more successes, he returns without any ill effects. The Taiping give you food before they leave. Add 6 food. If you do not send the oldest male, the armed men seize half your food rounded up. So if you had 7 food, they would take 4. It's now time for a hunger check. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. You would add the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove 1 food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you do not have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. If you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. Determine who loses the health roll on the random table on your board, and you do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let me know. Who led the Taiping Rebellion? Was it A, Hong Xiuquan, B, Yi Chengye, C, Chu Jin, or D, Deng Xiaoping? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was Hong Xiuquan. Draw a card. The Wuchang Rebellion has broken out. You hear that people are rebelling against the Manchu-led Qing Dynasty to establish something called a republic. Do you support the rebels or the Manchu-Qing Empire? Whichever side you support, you must make your hunger check with only 5s and 6s counting as successes. Each family member rolls a number of dice equal to their economic contribution number. Add up the total number of successes of all family members and add that many food counters to the harvest box. Remove one food counter for each food needed. If you have food counters left, move them from the harvest box to the stored food box. If you don't have enough food in the harvest box, you can remove a food counter from food storage or a counter from the family's reputation for each missing food. You can spend multiple counters if necessary. If you do not have sufficient reputation or food stored, someone has to lose 1 health for each missing food. Determine who loses the health roll on the random table on your board. Do this for each missing health. If anyone dies, let your instructor know. The rebels succeed, and the Qing is overthrown, opening a new chapter in China's history. If you're still alive, congratulations, you have survived the fall of the Qing Empire. Questions for reflection. How did your family do? Why do you think that way? Who did you support during the Wuchang Rebellion? Why? What did you learn about the Qing Dynasty from this game?